The big thing we're going to jump into first is that rumors about a Windows 12 subscription were swirling this week after German site Deskmodder found references to a subscription edition in a Canary Channel Windows 11 Insider preview build that is absent in other Windows 11 builds. While outlets like NeoWin initially supported Deskmodder's hypothesis, though, Windows Central has argued that this subscription language isn't, in fact, referring to the client version of Windows 12, but rather a newly discovered IoT Enterprise Subscription Edition of Windows 11. However, and this is actually my theory, the subscription language could be a reference to new features in the future version of Windows that will require a subscription, like the inevitable rollout of a consumer version of the Windows 365 Cloud PC service, or that's not what I actually think it is. I think it's going to be more along the lines of AI features like Copilot requiring a subscription service in order to keep them going. I think
like a pro style.
Exactly. Well, just like you would see with something like Stable Diffusion right now, where sure, Cortana or BingBot or whatever, I don't care what they ultimately call it, the stupid bar that you can't get to go away, actually you can get it to go away, but the stupid bar in the bottom of your start menu, whatever they call that thing, you could ask it a question and you could either be put into a long queue or you could get priority service and quicker answers and more prompts allowed before you have to clear it and start over again. Professional features like that. I'm on it. Okay, we'll talk about that a little bit later. Luke added a thing to the bottom of it that I'm actually, feeling a little validated about, but I haven't read the whole thing. I don't think you should. So maybe I shouldn't.
So we'll fight version 2.
That's not what people tune in to see. They like to see us agree about everything.
I don't think that's true.
I don't think. I think
they'd love it if we just fought all the time.
Yes, they would. No. Get in here, Dan.
Start yelling.
I don't want to. I'm sick of this. Wow, the show has devolved shockingly quickly this week. Anyway, I want to talk about Windows as a subscription. I'm gonna get canceled again.
You're okay with it?
I support it.
Okay.
I think it makes a ton of sense.
I don't disagree.
I have to leave.
But only for the feature version that you're talking about.
Yeah.
I think if it was the base operating system, that would be BS. It wouldn't work. It'd be stupid. Everyone would be pissed off. Everyone's going to go to other platforms. But for external server AI powered stuff,
that costs a lot of money.
It has made no sense to me from the start how they've had the GPT-4 level stuff publicly and freely accessible.
No, that's wild. It's the whole Silicon Valley, let's burn the venture capital as fast as possible into the money burning furnace. It's that whole model all over again. We need all the users, oh my God, we're not making any money. And then they have to charge money for it at some point.
Because the whole you can go on OpenAI's website and use ChatGPT 4 for $20 a month, or you can just use Bing for free thing has been really weird to me this whole time.
Yep.
So that, to me, would make sense.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. And I called this literally years ago, that Windows essentially is free now. And it's not. When you buy an OEM PC, for example, Microsoft is charging Acer or
it's got a bit of a thing on
Lenovo or whatever. They are charging them for a license, and you can absolutely still go to newegg.com and buy a Windows license. And if you buy it straight from Microsoft, you will even pay a lot of money for it. But it has been very clear pretty much ever since they started offering free upgrades from edition to edition of Windows. In fact, they only recently closed the Windows 7 to Windows 8 loophole.
Really?
Mm-hmm. They announced that it was no longer a thing years ago.
Yeah, I thought it was.
But you could totally still do it. And apparently there's still a way to work around the way that they have closed it. It's totally still a thing to just use a Windows 7 key and upgrade it all the way to Windows 11.
Man, wasn't there a Windows 7 Ultimate key or whatever at that tech shop that you bought out?
I think so. Nice. Nice.
Heck yeah.
But ever since they started doing that, it's become very clear that they are going to say they care and that piracy is really bad. But what they figured out in the Vista days is that their position as the monopolistic owner of the operating system space is not as secure as I think they thought it was. And I think a big part of the reason that the year of the Linux desktop keeps being a meme and keeps never happening is that Microsoft has gradually loosened their approach to DRM and to anti-piracy. It cannot possibly, think about it. Okay, I know this is some tinfoil hat sounding, it's raining frogs or whatever kind of stuff right now. But if Microsoft, if they cared that you pirated Windows,
oh yeah,
could they stop it at this point? With the amount of phoning home,
they could make it way harder at the very least.
It is literally okay, here's an example. One of the things that you can't do if you don't enter a license key into Windows, because when you install it, you can just say, I don't have a product key. That's actually a button. You just press it and you install Windows. And in the old days, it would pretty much cut you off after I think it was 30 days. Or maybe you could extend it a few times to 180 or something like that. These days, you just press that button and then just never enter a product key. And it has a watermark in the bottom right. And this is one of the sort of validations of my theory. That watermark is really hard to get rid of. If you that's interesting. If you try hard enough, you can. And there's fake activation servers, and you can actually pirate Windows still. But if the only drawback to having the not pirated, and I didn't install some sketchy thing or download some sketchy thing, and I just have this it's fine, whatever, who cares? And there are technically other drawbacks. See, this is another thing.
You can't not change your background.
You can't change your desktop background if you want to do it in the modern control panel settings menu. If you just find a picture and right-click it,
background,
it totally works. So that's the kind of workaround that I'm looking at going, okay, this is clearly a very half-ass effort, you guys.
Yeah.
You are not convincing me right now that this is actually a problem, because I think Microsoft's biggest priority is having the largest platform. And I don't think they take it for granted in the same way that they did in the Windows XP days, in the Windows 98 days even. They are fighting against valid competitors, especially, look at what Apple's doing with macOS. Sure, they don't care about the Mac, which is frustrating, but on the mobile side, on the MacBook side, they're still doing stuff. And on the gaming side, those things are actually getting powerful enough to run real games on Apple Silicon. And they are finally courting developers on the Mac side, having seen how much revenue there is on the iOS side of things, I guess, or whatever it is that finally prompted them to be like, huh? Oh, yeah. Computer games. When's the last time you even heard them called computer games?
Yeah.
Back when Apple was a relevant option for it.
Yeah.
So the way that I see this is Microsoft will ultimately move to free to play. And here's something really crazy. I'm about to make a bold prediction that won't get me canceled, but could get me laughed at. I think it will be more profitable.
Oh yeah, no, I agree.
I think that
if they bundle in ad removal, if they're like, this is Windows, not Windows Pro, but
Windows Premium.
Windows Premium, the exact word I was going to go for, and it no longer has ads, and you gain AI features that hopefully don't completely suck, which we'll talk about in a second. But if it has ones that are actually worth anything, and the ads are gone, the ads being gone alone would be worth something to me.
I think they should go back to the Windows 95 branding and call it Windows Plus.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I kind of like that.
Windows 12 Plus or something like that. I'd love the throwback, even if I hate giving the money every month, but I got to be honest with you, I would probably buy it.
If it removes ads, I'd probably buy it.
It needs to have a family plan. Like,
Yes.
there's no way I'm going to buy a full license for every computer. But Microsoft's
Microsoft's pretty down with that.
they have been open
Yeah.
to group plans, whether it's corporate, like MSDN or whatever else, or even whether it's family, like Microsoft Office had family plans
Yeah.
back in the day, probably still does.
Yeah.
It was like student and family or something like that. So if I just had to buy, Windows Premium or Windows Plus or whatever else it is for every, 5 computers I have or whatever, they'd probably get me.
If the operating system's free,
And I would be spending way more on Windows than I do today. As it is right now, I basically buy a license every time I am finally on a machine where I have to do enough screen capture on it that I'm like, okay, the optics of this are really bad. If we upload this to the channel, I should probably just buy a license. So my work computer is done. My home desktop is also done.
I have a legit license for my home desktop.
And then I entered a license onto my media PC ages ago that I own, but I think is not a proper one. I think it's a gray market one or something like that. But I actually bought proper licenses.
I think it needs both, personally. I think it needs actually good AI features, and I think it needs ad removal.
Okay, let's talk about the AI features because Luke put this into the notes. Related, Linus was kind of right about Copilot sucking now.
I did not put this into the notes.
Oh, well, someone did. Someone did. And so I'm going to go, yay.
And no, I completely disagree.
Okay, fine. Hit me.
Because my point was not about it being bad. My point
Sure.
was about the journalistic issues with how we were addressing it, which I was completely right about. That was not the same build.
Okay, so I didn't show my work, which is a problem for me sometimes. But
Yes.
I did explain last week that it was pretty clear to me that based on the overall direction of development,
It just doesn't matter.
but it does matter.
No, because you didn't show your work.
What matters is that I've seen a lot of pre-builds of things. I've seen a lot. And there
But
are...
some of them haven't.
But I have.
Yeah.
So I've seen a lot of pre-done things. It's always interesting to me when I read an article or I see a forum thread discussing leaked benchmarks of an upcoming CPU, for example, and that CPU isn't due for launch for another 3 months or something like that, and you'll see people speculating. Particularly fanboys, I see this a lot. You'll see them going, "Oh yeah, but it could be way faster. It could be a winner by the time it comes out." And I'm kind of sitting here going, "No, it won't be, because
It's only...
it's so far behind that you got to understand, silicon, they ain't spinning new silicon in that amount of time.
It is better than what we used.
Sure, but hold on. Let me
still bad.
finish this. Let me finish this train of thought, though.
Yeah.
So it could get a little bit better. There could be driver optimizations. There could be this. There could be that. But there's not going to be enough across the board gains unless they are completely re-architecting this thing, which they aren't, because if they're sampling it, they aren't. That's just not how it works. But these are things that I feel like a lot of people don't have exposure to and don't know
Yeah, because
how much you can extrapolate.
at a fairly fundamental level,
Yes.
these models still hallucinate too much.
Yes.
And when it hallucinates too much, Microsoft isn't going to want it to be just willy-nilly changing features on your
Hallucinating
computer.
your desktop background all of a sudden being hardcore XXX content or something like that.
Yeah, so they had to be really careful about it actually doing things. So instead, it instructs too much.
I also think that there's
Yada,
a lot
yada,
of...
yada, yada,
I
yada.
also think one of the things that was clear to me, and that I didn't show my work for, was that they had serious usability and potential liability concerns around it being able to too independently control your computer, and also
Yeah.
security concerns.
Yeah.
If Copilot was able to actually change system settings on its own, all of a sudden, you don't have to compromise the system. You just have to compromise Copilot, and you can do whatever you want. It's basically like if you manage to compromise PowerShell, essentially, at that point.
And these language models are very sus when it comes to compromising.
So, I was right that
Nah.
I was still right,
Nah.
except I was right.
No.
So, based on the amount of beta software that I've
Wrong.
seen,
Just for a throwback.
actually very unhelpful. based on the amount of beta software that I've seen over the years, based on what was the obvious design constraints that they were working within, the concerns that they were clearly trying to address, it was pretty clear to me that it was not going to be useful in the way that I would want it to be. Because to me, Copilot is not really that useful if I have to touch my keyboard anyway. By the time I touch my keyboard, I might as well have just done the thing.
Do you mean your mouse?
Either. You have to touch your key.
Because you want a mic into it. Okay.
Yeah. So it's, well, no, not just activating the mic. I just mean like if I ask it to do something and it's like
my point is you're talking about without touching my keyboard. So how did you just ask it to do something?
Oh no no. I mean I assumed it's voice activated. I just mean once I ask it something and it just goes, hey, I found a guide where you can look up instructions for how to press start and type CMD and then run a command. And I'm sitting here going, well, sure, fine, but I could have just typed in that question then, and then my hands are on my keyboard already anyway.
For the most part, it is Bing Chat that is a lot easier to get to.
Yeah, which is
still neat.
Not a Copilot, and I think it's a branding issue right now.
That's interesting.
Or maybe what this is just obviously a very, very early version of it that just isn't that useful, which is all I really said last week, 2 weeks ago.
He wasn't saying that it needed to be telepathic. He just said it weirdly.
Oh, yeah, no.
We figured it out.
Okay, so yeah, when we tried it last week, you would ask it something, and then it would spit out instructions that basically negate any reason for you verbally interacting with your computer. Because all of a sudden, it's like, okay, well, to follow these instructions, I need to
I still think it's going to do that for a long time, very long time.
Very long time.
Years, potentially, because of the hallucination problem. I think as long as it hallucinates a reliable amount, which might sound weird, but I do mean it the way I said it. As long as it hallucinates a reliable amount, they're going to want to keep it away from doing relatively important system tasks.
Yep.
And they do have it doing, like the dark mode, light mode thing does totally work, and it even like looks kind of cool.
You can use it to change from dark mode to light mode.
Yeah, but it's just dark mode.
It's purely aesthetic.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think it is as much to do with security as it is to do with
definitely both
with that. Because if Copilot could do anything, even something as simple as waking the PC.
I do think we're going to get over the security thing, though.
Well,
because I think they're a little worried about that right now, but you can still do that through like PowerShell scripts and all this other kind of stuff. So it's not like that functionality doesn't exist.
But
I think they're worried about the door right now. So I do think it's valid.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you could do anything, even something that is as seemingly innocuous as changing the system's sleep settings, that's a huge security vulnerability potentially, right? Like if I could just walk by someone's desk, let's say I have access to the building and I could kind of like physically access the computer, and I know that this person's kind of careless about leaving their computer when they walk away, but they have like a 15 second a 15-second sleep, so they don't have to think about it, right? If I could just kind of swing by their computer or compromise Copilot somehow
over the network,
and I could get it to change that to a 5-minute timeout, all of a sudden this system that would normally be locked could be accessed. And yes, I know just a Windows system being on the lock screen is not secure. I get it. But the difference is that if I can get it to not go to sleep, I can access that computer, change it back to 15 seconds, let it lock, and walk away with no one ever knowing I accessed it. If I have to strip the account security off of it, then I can't do it as stealthily. So these are still things that matter. And so there's so many different ways that a computer could be compromised that we might not even think about, that I can understand why Microsoft is being extremely cautious.
Yeah.
Which is, again, something that I could tell from last week, and that informed me that this is obviously not going to be useful at all in the way that I would want it to be useful, and therefore is going to suck. No matter how unfinished it was, because it's obvious that they have serious design constraints.
I'll make a compromise for you.
Sure.
You were correct.
Yes.
You get 0 marks.
That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm totally fine with that. I would rather be correct and get
Correct,
nothing
0 to 5.
than get $1 million and be wrong. Like, no. That actually has all the value to me.
Correct 0 to 5.
And
It's pretty bad. I don't think you haven't used the actual release version.
No, I haven't yet.
So it is better than the one we were messing with on the show.
I would hope so.
It's not, for all the reasons you're saying, it's not massively better, but it is better.
And I will concede that you were also right that we shouldn't present it as some kind of finished thing.
Problem.
Yeah, I guess I just. So again, this is something where sometimes I have blind spots.
Yeah.
Like I evaluate beta crap all the time. It's actually my job.
The reason why I was like so mad is because I knew what you were doing, but I was just
like I do it all the time, right? And so I just make the assumption that everyone watching is like, oh yeah, it's beta.
Just you also have to consider when someone's going to tune into the show.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah,
and all this. So like it. Yeah. Anyways,
how about this? We were both right.
Nice. Hell yes. Negotiations. Let's go. Yeah, no, it's so I think it's actually going to genuinely see a decent amount of use.
That was the worst moment of WAN Show ever. That was so cringe.
That was pretty cringe. I think it's actually going to see a decent amount of use with people that aren't super familiar with their computers. I might want to do something to it.
Yeah.
But also like don't want to end up on some weird forum trying to learn.
That's the problem is that's what I want it to do. And it's just not.
No, it can do that sort of because when you ask it a question and it just spits out a list of steps. I understand.
Yeah.
I understand. Hold on.
Not going to happen.
That's still better than having someone dive through forums. Unsure, whatever. I understand it's doing the same thing.
Yeah, here's my problem with that, though, is that's useful as long as what you're trying to do is the most basic version of whatever problem absolutely everybody else had that could possibly be phrased that way. I had an issue while I was working on my review of the Big Screen Beyond, where I couldn't figure out how to close a floating desktop window. So basically in Steam VR, you can go into your menu and then you can grab a view of your desktop, you can pop it out, you can put it somewhere, and then you can close the menu and it'll just hang there.
Cool.
In VR, and you can do your thing and it'll just be there. And I couldn't find any resources that could tell me how to close it. I found a dozen articles announcing the feature. I found screenshots where the interface was slightly different and it had like an X, like it had an obvious way to close it. And I don't know if it's just because they've recently updated Steam VR in a big way and I haven't got the latest version of it yet or something. It seems to be kind of broken right now for me or something, or maybe there's a button, but I couldn't find the instructions. And because pop-out window VR issue, or basically anytime you have a problem with another great example of this is I was having login issues in Minecraft Dungeons, which it's like just a black screen because it's so annoying. To install Minecraft Dungeons, first you have to log into your Microsoft account in the Microsoft Store, then you have to download the launcher, then you have to log into your Microsoft account in the Minecraft launcher, then you launch the game, and then you have to log into your f***ing Microsoft account in the game, which if you haven't logged in over 2 months or something like that, and it times out, there's some stupid like app data file you have to delete so that the thing will actually refresh. And to top it all off, because, don't forget two-factor authentication. To top it all off, when you're working with a child's account, you have to provide a parental authorization every f***ing time, and I have 3 kids!
Wow, that's okay.
So to play Minecraft Dungeons sometimes, I'd be doing this times 4 computers. I'd be spending an hour just getting the game open.
So you did 12 logins and 12 parental authentications?
Whatever it worked out
with probably 12 2FAs?
Yeah, it was very
that's the worst.
Frustrating sometimes. It's like, is this just on GOG? The answer is no.
Handyman says, go passwordless, use 2FA and passkeys. Handyman, we are often aligned. That, while the right move, it absolutely did not result in less steps. It resulted in a lot more steps.
Yeah.
Because now for every single one of those computers, unless you're doing it on your phone, you're logging in each time. If you're doing it on your phone, then you're still juggling back and forth.
Yeah.
You're still typing in the whole password.
Yeah, it's very frustrating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Password managers don't reduce steps.
No, they don't.
They increase steps.
Yeah, but they increase security, and I fully support
great.
the use of them.
You should use them.
They're very
100%.
important.
Yeah.
But yeah, it can be very frustrating. I forget why we're even talking about this anymore.
Something about something about getting steps.
Yeah, right. So when you search for something in Copilot and it provides you instructions in that manner, the odds of those instructions being just like the brain dead obvious one that actually has nothing to do with your edge case is pretty high. Because like in Minecraft Dungeons, whenever I tried to troubleshoot authentication problems or login issues, it was always like, reset your password.
Yeah.
So, no, I actually have an actual problem. But especially because it's a piece of software for children, most of the time when someone is searching for something about it,
it is going to be that.
It's actually going to be that, which naturally surfaces all of those answers and all of those help articles when actually they're completely useless. And what I need is some obscure Reddit thread somewhere, right?
And here's my biggest issue with Windows Copilot is effectively the hallucinations.
Yeah.
There's this issue that we've had for a long time, which is where it'll start hallucinating more the longer you have a conversation with it. And things like Copilot, they make you want to have a long conversation with it.
Yeah.
I feel like designers...
They kind of egg you on.
Yeah, I feel like the designers are like, oh, people should use this a lot, right? So it doesn't really make you think to reset the conversation. And there's a lot of threads of people just playing around with it, and when everyone plays around with it, they do the one cool thing that it can do, which is dark mode, light mode. So people do that, and then they'll get it to do that, and then they'll start asking it other questions, and just mid-conversation, it'll be like, do you want me to set it to dark mode? And it's like, what? Like, I didn't ask for that at all. But now it's awesome. Like, can you click the button? I want to set it to dark mode. I want to do this. And it's like, what? There was somebody was talking about how...
It's like a kid that learns a new song on the recorder at school. It's like, wants to show it to everybody.
Yeah, I'm trying to find where this article was from. I can't find it right now, unfortunately, but they said that they were using it, and while talking to it, it asked them it told them that it should ask it a joke.
Ask it a joke?
Yeah. And they were like, what? Okay. And they got it to tell them a joke, and they were like, okay, and then just like went back to what they were doing, and they're like, what is this? Someone else asked it told someone to ask what its name was. And they were like, okay.
That's a little weird.
And they asked, and it was like, I'm Bing Chat. And it's like, what? No, you're not. You're supposed to be Windows Copilot. So there's some, the same issue we've been having literally the entire time things going on, which makes sense. You should be able to expect that. But yeah.